Welcome, everyone. This is our office hours on February 10, 2021. We are talking about how to optimize your annual plan to meet your business goals or to meet your organization's goals. And we want to talk about what metrics, what key performance indicators, what data you guys use in helping showcase the value of your community to your organization, to your executives, and to your community. So, who wants to ask the question first? No questions. Let me just say, I was in the process of reviewing the CMX Community Industry Report, and it was very clear that of the top challenges that people encounter in the community industry, it's how to showcase the value of your community to the executives and to the organization. And it said that 45% of the respondents to the survey said it's very hard to quantify the value. 43% says the second challenge that they have, it was difficult to consistently engage their members. And then 37% said their challenge was that a lot of the work that they do is manual and not automated. And so I want to bring up a question to you guys. What metrics do you use and data do you present to your company leadership in order to show value of your community, or just as a reporting mechanism?
Could you give us an example? I was curious about your feedback on the report. I haven't dug into it yet, and so I was curious if you had any like aha or like maybe an example that you could share.
Yes, so it's hard to quantify the value of community. Really resonates with me as a community builder that has been doing it for a long time. Community is a new term. People don't understand what it is. They're like, what do you mean community? Community health center? You mean grassroots community? What does that mean? Is it my customers? Is it an internal community? When I ran my nonprofit, I was the executive, so I knew the value of community. To me, the more meetups I organized, the bigger my group became, which meant that for the first year, I was building my nonprofit because I really just wanted to share what I know and give workshops about how to build startups and how to build apps to the city I was living in. I wasn't even thinking about sustainability, what I was doing, but I did that for a year. And what happened was that I built a community of fans because they knew when I organized an event, I would have good speakers, I would give them value, and I would feed them. So I always had food at my events or coffee or drink. So people always showed up. And for the first year, it was my give back thing. I didn't charge for any of my workshops, but I built super fans of people. And then when I decided to do an international conference, I already had an existing community. So that was the value of my community to me. In fact, the conference was kind of like an idea of a bunch of us, but really I built that with my community. I asked them, what do we want to do next? Right. So that's the value I got. Did I answer your question, Deb?
Yeah, it was funny because we talked in our mastermind mixer yesterday. Beth was sharing like, did you ask your community? And what she was saying about putting little desk signs or something for community managers. And instead of like, starting something or even starting down a thought process of a project or implementing something, did you ask the community? Like, is it something they want? Have people asked you, like, I need this, I really want X? Because if they're asking for it, then you already know people are going to show up. It's going to be valuable to everybody in the community. And it's going to be obviously valuable to, as you're building community, to the higher level people because they're seeing that it's worth the investment. So,
right. For me, that was the most wonderful thing about the community, because if you're engaged, you know what the issues are, right? And you pay attention to what the issues are, and then you build. What you're building is going to be addressing those issues. So in essence, it's a design thinking methodology, right? Comments, Chloe or Hamza or Tiffany or Tim and Oliver.
Nice to meet you. My first time during office hours. So my name is Tali. I'm from Israel, and I'm leading the meetup program at Elemental, which is a website building platform. And Oliver asked a question, and I just said I really have to respond because I was asked by the company leadership last year to check what are the benchmarks for some of our KPIs and the goals. And I will respond that we don't have benchmarks yet because all the community industry is very new in the stage that it's currently, and we just don't have it that we can really rely on that. But I am keeping to look for benchmarks by asking other community managers what are they doing, what are their KPIs, numbers, percentage of a lot of things. And I think that also CMX helps with that, with the annual report. But like we're still missing specific benchmark for specific sub programs in the community. Like it's a very different benchmark for Facebook groups type of community and in-person events, for example. So I'm keeping looking for them, but also help to create them and establish type of benchmarks. So just explaining that it's difficult to explain the ROI. It is still difficult to see the specific benchmarks.
And so for me, there's also an opportunity, right? Because it's true that we're an emerging industry, but it's for those of us who've been doing this for a while, it's really not emerging. We've been building communities for a long time. We just never called it as such, right? And so the opportunity is also that for the person asking, Oliver, for the leadership asking, industry benchmarks, I would also focus on what exactly is this person asking for that would meet his needs. Is he wanting new customers? Is he wanting to see how much new revenue you will get from the community? Try to be very specific on what the needs are, and then build your metrics or build an activity that will give him the data that he needs, right? Because when we say, oh, there's no industry benchmarks yet, I'm kind of afraid that executives were like, oh, then it's not proven. We have been doing these kinds of things. We just call it different things. That's my opinion. What do you guys think?
I agree. I also think it's an opportunity to set.
By the way,
the
I
don't know if it's called the benchmarks, but to set the things that we believe as community managers that are the correct and good ones for a community. Because it's different type of look than marketing or something where you're seeing just your business goals and not also the user goals.
Okay. I'm sorry, was there somebody else speaking? Oops. Oliver, what are your thoughts? Oliver. Anyone else have any questions? Okay. Yes, Hamza.
Yeah, I have a question. Like the purpose of community building is to drive engagement, more and more engagement. More people talking about different topics related to your business, whether it is support, to provide technical support, whether it is for any other purpose, maybe for non-profit. So the benefit we get is the voice of the customer. Like what are their feedbacks? We get the feedback from the customer, and somehow we get to know their stance. We get to know their ideas about the product, the flaws we have in the product, what is the customer's need actually. So aren't these figures sufficient enough for the organizations, for the high-ups, to realize the real value for their businesses? If it's for non-profit, even then people get engaged, and we get a lot of engagement and activity out of these community building techniques and all the activities of community building. So for my country, in Pakistan, it is really a norm, and nobody is actually talking about community management, and huge brands don't have their community programs. Like Nike, footwear brand, it's like country-based events, meetups of the people who are the customers who wear Nike. So for huge brands, we have some meetups and some events online and in person, but it is really novel thing, and no one actually, very few person are actually realizing that the community management is the future. So is it the same? The situation is the same for the whole world or some parts of the world, the developing countries? Is it like is it the same, or is it only for my country, like in Pakistan?
Okay, if I understand you correctly, Hamza, you see that there's a lot of activities there that's community related, but you feel like the corporates are not valuing it as much, right? Okay, so the short answer, in my opinion, is that it's similar for the rest of the world as well, because it's a community management in the old world could have been called customer success. It could have been called marketing. It could have been, grassroots organizations. So now we're just calling it community management, and it's a very wide term that applies to many different things. A community could be your customers, like for Nike, it would be the users or the buyers of their products, right? Nike customers. So it could be internal customer. It could be like Salesforce and their internal employees. You could build a community there, that internal. Salesforce is also an awesome case study on how they use community to increase revenue, to increase the number of users that they have, and to help them with the support level, right? Because you've seen case studies about that. So that, that's the general concept. In your particular case, when you said, the first statement you said is that the purpose of communities is to drive engagement. That's correct, but it depends on who your organization is and what the executive leadership is, on what they value. We as community managers may think, oh, it's very important for the customers to be engaged or for the community to be engaged. But if I am a for-profit company and as an executive, I am measured by how many new customers I get, how much revenue I get, then you need to make sure that your business goals, we just lost Hamza, your business goals are aligned to your community goals. So I think for sustainability, and this is what I learned from John O'Bacon's book and the workshops that he's given, and in everything that I do, if I engage with a business, with a for-profit business, I have to look at what are their business goals and how can I, as a community manager, help them accomplish their business goals. Because the business goals, will have budget, right? If I just say I want my customers to be happy and marketing doesn't care if your customers are happy, I'm not going to be given a budget. That's how black and white I am sometimes. Like, we want to help the world. We don't care. We just want to make money. Am I right? Or, sorry, Hamza, we lost you. Did you catch what I said?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. What community are you working with right now?
Yeah, it is called spiritual psychology. It has some commercial intents and some as well, like helping the people with some psychological or mental disorders and making profit out of it, and also performing some social activities for the social benefit.
Okay, so it's a tool or a service?
It's a service. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so like the goal of your community might be for brand awareness and to increase the number of signups, right, to use your service.
Yep, yep.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Do you guys have anything to add to Hamza's comments? Okay, Oliver has text only, but did we answer your question, Oliver, earlier?
I have a question, if I may.
Yes. Sally, yes.
How do you know or decide about your growth, your local group's growth, which is different this year, of course. But if you want like to expand the local chapters, how do you decide how many, where, which?
Okay, so my general concept or strategy for community building, Tali, is I always look at who I have today and what their needs are, and then build my solutions against who I have today, because they're a big part of my success. So when you say, how do I increase the number of chapters? Do you mean, do I create new chapters? Do I increase this chapter? And in that case, for example, if you want to increase the number of people in this particular chapter, if you're engaging with them regularly, you're going to be able to see if they talk about challenges and opportunities, why they should have more people there, right? It's more like, it's like design thinking. A big factor of my consideration on how I grow is what the current community right now is feeling, what their status is. Do they need this service that I want? Because I may want to create a new chapter in, I don't know, in Berlin, but if there's absolutely no one in Berlin that's using my product, or there's only 5 people there, it's kind of hard. So if there's 5 people in Berlin, I would start engaging with them. So how are you guys doing? Blah, blah, blah. Do you, we were thinking about opening a chapter there. What do you think? At least there's some data before I start something.
Yes. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Chloe.
Yes.
I'm from California. I have been.
Love your glasses.
Thank you. They're like a little party on my face. They're my pandemic purchase. I love it. I started in community management 2011 in virtual communities at Yahoo. I ran into the same issues you're talking about, where all my data was qualitative and it didn't immediately present a value to the exact community was not invested in. I did what I could. I ran into a wall. So I left and I went into product management. I've done that for the last 5 years and it is not making me happy the way community made me happy. So I'm looking to get back into it. And I'm seeing community espoused in a lot of these job postings in virtual communities, that the companies are starting to see the value of having a thriving community, but they definitely want to see quantitative metrics and not the qualitative metrics I'm used to giving them. So I'm looking to learn from everybody else's experience about how do you quantify these metrics of an engaged community. Are you looking for daily active users? Are you looking for users as part of the community that is using the product, and who's engaged on the forums? Like that's a metric that makes sense to me. I'm also really interested in hearing about how you go about creating an annual plan for your community outreach, because community has evolved in the years I have been out, and I'm really excited about it. And I'd love to hear about people's recent experiences with it.
I'm so excited because I was a product marketing person in my first career in tech, but this is a tool that's definitely needed. Chloe, there probably is a tool out there that people are using on their own, but there's no template. So it would be great if you or we can put together a template. And I can already envision, like, I don't know where, Deb, I can already envision that you or a bunch of us could work with a bunch of community managers and say, okay, what metrics are you using? And we try to build something around it. So the industry report is an awesome tool, Chloe, because I almost envision it, because it has like the things that people do. So the product marketing or product management kind of tool I envision in order to help community managers quantify their value is a checklist as a way to just prompt them to say, am I doing this? Is this something that my executive is considers important, right? So it's almost like, here's a menu of the things that executives might want or businesses might want. Does this something apply to me? So that's the goal, the strategy. And then you have, ways or tasks on how you can accomplish that goal. So again, the tools that I've seen people use are similar tools for Agile and all these project management tools that you're very familiar with. And I always get confused. Is it like strategy, objective, or objective, strategy, and then the specific things that people do? For example, for John O'Bacon's book, what he recommends is a quarterly report that says, what's your mission, what's the objective, and what are the tasks? And then you check with like the department heads to say, what are your mission, what are your objectives? And so you can kind of brainstorm what community can bring in order to accomplish that objective. In that case, you already are collaborating before you even start doing the community, because that's the only way you can get visibility and credibility, and funding is a very important thing. Otherwise, we're all going to burn out.
Does anybody have any experience with any of the community management platforms like Koros, or the ones that combine all your different communities into one for you? So like you can access your Facebook community, your Twitter community, your Instagram community from one central tool. Has anybody used anything like that?
So we are going to create, it's not exactly answering questions because we're going to be new with that, because we have a community on Facebook, and of course we have users on Instagram and Twitter, and our meetups are meetup.com so far. And we are growing, and our users are growing. We want to give them a better experience and also understand more and learn more about them to give them a better tools and experience. So we are going to have a hub, a community hub, which will be based on a forum, which is Insider, platform called Insider, together with Bevy for the events part. And we are going to draw users to there, replacing the space for discussions from Facebook and all other activities, where engagement and helping them with support and everything that community can give to one another. So we're going to also use our single sign-on, which means that we will know and understand which segment are the users, how long are they using the product. So it would also help us quantify all the things that the management want, but also to give them more value and the right value, even we will ask them, of course, we'll always ask them, but to understand more deeply their needs.
Yeah, I wanted to build on your doing single sign-on. Something else that adds value to is that becomes a very low barrier to entry for your users to become community managers. And I think that's fantastic. I mean, not community managers, for users to become active parts of your community. If they're logged into your product and they could just go right into your community, you've integrated community into your product essentially with that single sign-on. So I think that's a great move.
Yeah, the other perspective I want to offer too is like for us, we're a small nonprofit, and at the beginning, as we were building the community, we're like, where do we build the community, right? Because as we were starting up, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, where are these people? There's only like 7 of us. We can't possibly reach out to all these places, and we discovered that where. So we had events, and so we asked people, where did you hear about us? And we discovered that LinkedIn was #1 for us. And then Instagram was also #1. And we learned from other folks in our community, in the women's health community, with that, was that like we have a big podcast on women's health. It's the #1 podcast. And one of the podcast hosts that we also were reaching out to is like, look, you can't possibly be in every network. We're just starting out. So pick maybe 2 or 3 that you focus on. So take care of that, and the rest you just direct people to those 3 groups that you have. So right now we're on Mighty Networks, and I like that tool, Deb. I don't know if Deb's still here. I like Mighty Networks because it allows us to have free services and paid services in the same platform.
Hi, this is Ivan from the Washington, D.C. area. If you look at this, you go on CMX website, they've conducted a community industry report for 2021. And on page 30, they list the platforms that the survey people pick. So you can get a good idea what people are using, and that's helpful.
Right. Also in that same report, thank you, Ivan. Also in that same report, Chloe, don't know what page it is, but there's a page that says top metrics by objective. So if the objective for your company is for the community to acquire new users, then the metrics that people use is how many new customers do you have, right? If the objective of the company to build the community is to give better support for the customers, then the metrics that you're going to measure is case deflection. I don't know what that means, actually. It's like maybe their customer support tickets, that kind of stuff. So, Ivan, was there anything else in the report that you thought was useful or pertinent for you?
Oh, there's always pieces of information that's helpful. So I suggest looking at it.
Right.
And I guess I'll chime in here. I'm work for the Department of Defense at a university, and we have 50 community practice. And we're open to the public, believe it or not, but we do have members you can join. And engagement is always a critical item. And we, like a lot of the reports and a lot of people talk about quietly, is engagement's the struggle. And a lot of people have changed their thought of what a good community is. And the fact is most people are surfers, right? They're hunters and gatherers. And so that's a form of engagement. Not everybody's an extrovert. Not everybody wants to contribute. So you just have to accept the fact that engagement may be not what you think it should be, like in a Facebook. Not everybody wants to vocalize. So, but you can still provide a service. So you just have to cope with that. Whatever it's ROE, that's return on expectations. What are you expecting? What is your leadership expecting? It's always a struggle.
I love that, ROE, return on expectations. Because when I read the industry report and it said lack of engagement, in my head, I immediately thought, that may not be the metric that you completely want to focus on. Because it depends on what your goals are. I mean, I don't care if people don't engage, but if I get 50,000 in sales today, hello. If that's what my executive wants, that's good. But return on expectation is really good. So be careful what you measure, right? You might get it. So make sure that what you're measuring is what is useful for you and for the company.
Another thing I like to chime in here, and cut me off if I talk too much, but it's the whole issue of metrics. And we need to be careful we're not focusing on project metrics. A metric, truly a good metric, is one that integrates what you're doing to the enterprise, to the organization's goal.
Mhm.
Simply reporting on activity on a project you're working on may not meet the needs for your leadership. So you've got to tie in what you're doing in your community to the overall goal of the organization, and that becomes a metric, not just measuring the page views and the number of members.
Yes, just reiterating, that's why I put the annual plan as a topic here, because that's one of the biggest lessons I learned when you do your strategy, right? You look at the organization's goals and what role does community play in ensuring that company-wide business goal is met. And in this case, I wanted to read what Oliver wrote. Oliver is having mic issues, so let's see. I'm looking at the chat. Oliver's saying, I split my reporting into 2 parts, community health, and how my community is performing. That data is for my community team, awesome. And the second part is I pull data out that tells a story to the person I'm presenting it to. For example, the number of threads answered by support to get a case deflection dollar value, and the ability to pull data out and contextualize it for the person you're showing it to is vital. Fantastic. Thank you, Oliver. Deb, can I invite you to talk about what you wrote on the chat?
Oh, sure. I was recently with community builders, specifically on the Mighty Network platform. And one of the things that they said would be helpful is to put together a resource for creating an onboarding plan, as well as support around how to build more engagement and contribution. So I just did a workshop about a week ago, and I took some resources from a lot of different places. There's a lot of stuff from CMX, but there's other places too. And what I found the most, like, people didn't have a process, and the process didn't align. The onboarding process didn't align with the mission or the goals of the business in some cases, or it was like either heavy weighted to, like, I'm working with a client who was heavy weighted to what I need, like I need income. So they need to come and pay for my community, and it's to support my business. However, you have to change that focus to being, what are those people going to get? And how is it balanced? They might want to support you, but how is it also going to be balanced? Because you don't want to just take information from them or constantly be like the whole cricket thing. You don't want to put a question out there and then like everybody's like crickets, nobody's talking, right? So you don't want that. And how do you grow engagement is like talk about fun stuff. So part of that workshop, we talked about random fun stuff, like what's going on in your life that's fun. One of our members said, I am doing a detox with coffee and I started drinking tea. I am so sick of green tea or something. I think she said green tea. She's like, what other teas are there, guys? Because I'm curious. And that was her most engaging post of like the week or something, because people then were like, I like this kind of tea. And people that weren't interactive or participating in conversations in the community for maybe months then came in because they could then share something. It's like the Facebook thing. When people ask for recommendations, everybody's like, oh, I'll tell you what's going on in my life, right? When you ask for like a blank closed question, right, it's not going to be as receptive as like an open question. Like, share with me your experience about our product. You know, there's like ways that you can rephrase questions so that they're like open. And so we talked about that in the workshop as well. And then the only other note I was mentioning was what I said earlier, aligning the business goals with the community goals. So like if you're taking actions as far as like creating a content calendar, what is that content calendar giving you? Like, is it going to help towards that goal of growing the membership or onboarding new paid members or building that product sales pipeline? So.
Cool. Awais, is it how you say your name? Sorry. Do you have any questions?
Hi, my name is Awais Irfan, and very happy to join you guys, and very inspiring discussion going on here. I have joined late and so much missed the words, and I am from Pakistan. I'm the CMX host of Islamabad. Yesterday, I had joined the mastermind session with the dev chain, and today I'm with you guys, and looking forward to meet you all. And, yeah.
Cool. Beth always said always doesn't sleep because he's always always an active participant. Thank you for that. So I'm gonna read up what Oliver wrote. It says, great tip I learned from John O'Bacon. Identify what questions you absolutely need to answer and find the minimum number of metrics that will answer those questions. Cool. So anything else, you guys? Let me ask you a question. Do you have, like Tally, for example, do you have an annual plan for your community efforts? Or is it under marketing or?
No, so we recently moved to be an independent community department at a company.
Oh, yay.
Yes, we are growing the community.
Yeah.
So it's good news, but I'm missing the more business goals because we're focused on community, and we do have a plan, and I have like a lot of new plans coming out this year especially because we are taking all the advantage from the virtual events. But now my problem is understanding, like I have the objectives, but understanding the metrics and the KPIs and trying to see if my numbers are reasonable. For example, we have over 60 meetup groups for now, and of course some of them are not active. They led by volunteers, and not all groups active. And I need like to track this number because the leadership is asking me how many active groups do we have, and I'm trying to understand, okay, what is the reasonable number of having active and non-active groups? And I don't know, and I'm asking, but it's very difficult. So this is like one, and we have like, so I'm a little bit stuck with what should I track and will bring value to the company and to me as the person who is in charge, because I have many plans, and for now I have like so many lines to track, and it just doesn't make sense for me.
Ivan, I think this might be something you can contribute to.
Not right now.
Okay. So my opinion, Tali, just my perspective. I have also used meetup groups. So again, it sounds overwhelming, right? Like what number do you use? I think we could start with what do you have now? Like an assessment of your current status. That might be a good first step to just figure out where you are now so that you know where you're going. So it might be good to like list the number of meetups, list who is active and who the organizers are there. What are the traits of an active meetup group? What do you consider active? Like the number of engagements, so you're trying to quantify that so that you can define in your mind today, what is an active meetup group? Is it just one post or one organizer? Is it multiple organizers? So that's a great metric to establish that this is what we have now, so that in the future, if you have expectations, if you start with what you have now, then it's grounded in reality. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so we have all of this already, and like I was we created this for last year, and then because our physical meetups became online, so it kind of like I lost the credibility of reflecting, seeing if my expectation were real or not, because everything changed. But I know that like it is something that is mutual for a lot of like I can say, yeah, community managers in my role as well. So I really hope that this is the reason I'm like going to be more active in CMX and participate in more meetups and connect with more people because I realize that I need the community, my professional community, to help out and do it together and progress together, understand the numbers.
Yeah. So get.
Oh, sorry.
So go ahead, Ivan. Sorry.
I'd like to chime in and add to what you said about understanding where you're at. It's somewhat of a basic concept, but it's hard to implement, and that is baseline where you're at today, figure out where you want to go. In other words, what are your expectations? And not just you, because you need to know who your sponsors are. You need to know where your leadership is going, not just, don't get so wrapped up. You may be like me, just a project manager on a community, but there are people above us that have expectations. So figure out where you want to go, or everybody wants to go, and then figure out how you're going to get there. What can you do to get to that future goal line? And it's that simple to say those 3 steps, but it's hard to do all those. And I will tell you a quick side story. We were struggling. We've been chronically struggling with engagement. So we reached out to some professionals, and they went to our sites and they said, I didn't see anybody's picture on your community sites. And I said, what does that matter? He goes, well, if you want engagement, you need to build a sense of trust. And pictures, a little profile, helps establish trust. And if you want people to engage in threaded discussions, people aren't going to say what's on their mind until they trust the environment that they're in. So it's little nuances like a profile. What do you like? What do you do? What are you up to? And those things help, like engagement. But again, that's how you get to your future vision, and that's full engagement. Is how do you get there? Well, you add some profiles, you add some pictures, you develop a trust environment.
That's amazing. Like for us in our own community, Tali, it'd be hard to see that, right? That's a factor. But if someone else with a new perspective comes in, that's good, Ivan.
Yes, thank you very much.
For me, in our own community, what I've seen develop organically, because we're in women's health startups, is that this thing about, I finally found the tribe of people that understand my niche or what I'm working on or my passion in women's health, right? So we focus mainly on women's health founders. So when they come in there, I'm like, oh my God, it's great, because the issues with women's health sometimes is they have a great product. If it's like for women's body parts, they can't advertise in some online platforms, and but for male body parts they can do that, but not for women. Anyway, but this is where they find the tips on how they can still continue their business. And I see that now as the value for our community. We're small, but we're solid within our community. Everybody's helping each other out, so that's why they come back, because it's giving them true value. Okay, we can answer any questions about anything. We have 10 minutes left, or we can end early. Chloe.
Sure. So when you sit down to create your annual plan, what kind of initiatives do you include?
Does anybody want to chime in, please?
Okay, I can go. Just a second. Okay, I'm here. So I can share this this year. We have an existing community and existing community meetup leaders, and we just I just heard them, and they will start to do things that it was clear to me that we will need to take it to the next level and do it, make it a part of the community programs, because they identified the need and they just done it. And then I just like was looking around and seeing what other communities are doing, and checking if it's something that can fit our community, if it's something that will bring value to our community and business. So this is how I build a plan of this year, just listening to our community leaders and seeing what others are doing and can fit us.
I would just share real quick. I'm working with a client now to come up with a new strategy, because a lot of things they've found are time consuming. So part of that conversation around how can we make intentional choices around how we're going to do a relaunch, and what's the meaningful conversation and why would these people come. So just asking a lot of questions to begin with to get clear on the why of why we're doing this, the goals, aligning those like we said, and then the action steps, and just breaking it down into like, okay, what is the first thing that we would want to do? My client is talking about 5 different communities and spending lots of time on broad ideas, which is great to like brainstorm, but like to get into the weeds and the details and to like break it down. I said, well, which one is the most important? Which one do you really either are passionate about, or it's going to bring you a return on investment, or return on, what was the return on engagement, or
Yeah, I love that.
yeah, I like that too. So you know, what's going to be the most powerful, and then let's start there and let's work through that and see how that works. And then kind of, instead of looking at the big picture, because I feel like a lot of people have 17 things that they want to do.
Yes.
Obviously, we as human beings, we can't do that. As community managers and community leaders and support staff, we need like a structure or a plan. And so I'm working with this person together for us to together create something that aligns with their new goals and new missions. So that's what I'm working on.
So you're like a community coach, Deb.
Yeah, a lot of what I've been doing is more consulting, and just recently this opportunity came about that's not only to do community management, but also to be an advisor, which I had never really considered. But everybody kind of needs that, like we talked about in the mastermind mixer, like everybody needs that like sounding board. And if you've only been talking to 2 people, like 2 CEOs, or just talking to each other, and they're not getting a third-party advisor, which is the case in this particular example, they've been bouncing around the same ideas for a couple of years. And so he was offering me the opportunity to share my insights from what I've learned, and then bounce ideas off and then say, okay, what have you guys tried? So it's just been interesting.
So Deb touched on a real important thing that you need to include in your performance, your annual plan, and that is the soft skill side to be really effective. And soft skill means active listening, like you talked about. It means being a coach. It means a thinking partner. It means critical thinking. And you should always include that in things that you need to work on, and the services you need to provide to all your members. You need to be able to do a stakeholder engagement, understand who the stakeholders are, and who's in with you and who's out, who doesn't agree with you, and then how are you going to get them to love you when it's all said and done. So that's what, over the years, I've been doing this here for 17 years. Being a thinking partner is the single most critical skill that it takes to get people to trust you and work with you. And I'm lecturing, but bear with me, I work at a university, so.
Hashtag thinking partner, Ivan, thanks for all these wonderful words.
I like the, can I just comment, like expectation setting? I know we talked about it earlier, but like just having the same expectations and like setting that in the very beginning is really super important. I found to have a good partnership or relationship with your, collaborators. So just being on the same page of like, do you need this to happen in 5 minutes, or like how long are we working on this project, or where is our goal, and is it the same as I think it is, as you think it is?
So let me add to that. You're right, but I'm a caveat that you have to be able to pivot quickly if things change. I had a colleague, she and I worked hard. We had this vision of what a community would be. We all thought it would be Facebook and everybody coming together and yakking and sharing, and it ended up not being that way, so we had to pivot away from it. So you can't grab onto your expectations so hard that it just
sure,
you, right? You got to look at the positives and the negatives. So
yeah, I typically recommend 90-day, 60 to 90-day refreshes to check in on where we're at. That's and maybe sooner if something happens faster than that. But like 60 to 90 days is pretty much usually, from my experience, a good time frame to like create a plan, start implementing action items, and then reviewing and seeing the metrics by that end of that time to see what worked and what didn't work. So definitely pivoting. I spent a lot of time pivoting, like I think us all last year, in multiple ways, between revenue, between what I was working on and spending my time. I was doing virtual events every week, and that was exhausting. I wasn't getting paid for that. And nobody was really showing up, because then their time was pulled between 17 different virtual events that they were trying to figure out which one they want to go to, or if they are zoomed out and they don't want to go to any. So that showed to me that I'm not doing virtual events, at least not right now in 2021. Like, that's done. Like, I need to figure out a different way because it didn't work. So that's just an example for sure.
Okay, guys. I just want to do a time check. We got 2 minutes before the next hour. Ivan, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, a lot of people talk about failing fast. We want you to fail fast, but it's really not failing fast. We'd rather have you pivot fast.
Right? Yes. Guys, this has been so awesome. Chloe, Oliver, Deb, always, Ivan, wonderful to talk to you. Please, let's connect also on Slack. Any other comments? And if you have any suggestions for what we can do at next month's office hours, I know Tali had made suggestions. Please just Slack us, and happy to share.
Thank you. I'm really excited to have found this community of community.
Yes, reach out to me if you. I would love to work with you on trying to do metrics for community people.
Great.
My hidden goal for my engagement with CMX is to have a bachelor's of science in community management at Stanford University. Because the corporate people are traditional people, and I want them to give the proper respect and compensation to magicians like us.
By the way, a side note, just to make you feel better, I'm a member of a federal knowledge management community because I'm a knowledge manager. And we all, from all the various federal agencies and Department of Defense, we all get together on a regular basis, and we all struggle with communities. It's just a struggle.
Ivan, you work at a university. Let's offer a professional course in your university. Come on.
Oh, well.
I'm very ambitious. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. See you next month, or see you on Slack. Take care.